everyone. My name is Pauline Josefiak, and today I will present the New York, New Jersey Watershed Restoration and Grant Program. So before we start with the presentation, I would like to thank the New York, New Jersey Watershed team, as you can all see on this pictures. We spent countless hours reading, reviewing, analyzing, discussing this program during the summer and the fall semesters. And also a special thanks to our faculty advisor, Lloyd Cass, who guided us during the fall semester on the implementation of this program. So first, starting with some introduction about the New York, New Jersey watershed. This watershed is of social, economic, and ecological importance for the entire region. It is home to 15 million people, but also to many endangered species, such as the short-nosed sturgeon or the American eel. It is also a true economic engine for the region, thanks to tourism, fishing, and recreational activities that generate close to $61 billion in revenue annually. The New York, New Jersey watershed is located across the New York and New Jersey states, but also crosses Vermont and Massachusetts. The watershed is composed of 7 individual watersheds, all identified on this map, which are all flowing into the New York, New Jersey harbor. Each watershed is facing issues on its own. For instance, the Passaic and Hackensack rivers are facing pollutants contamination, while the Mohawk River has been suffering from flooding events for many years. We can group these various threats to the watershed into 4 key categories of issues and their related solutions. So first, we have water pollution and water quality that needs to be improved and maintained. Habitat loss, which needs to be restored. Climate change-related events where nature-based solution can be used to prevent flooding, for example. And lastly, environmental injustice, as all these issues are disproportionately affecting lower-income communities, who need to be uplifted from an educational and public access standpoint. So as water is flowing through the watershed, all these issues are intertwined and need to be addressed both locally and from a global watershed perspective. So how to solve these issues and improve the overall New York, New Jersey watershed? Well, during the past few months, the team conducted 8 interviews with representatives from federal agencies and local organizations to better understand how to best implement this New York, New Jersey watershed restoration and grant program. And as the program director of the New York, New Jersey Harbor and Estuary Program told us, we need money not to study the watershed, but to implement projects. So time is for action now, and money is essential, obviously, to conduct projects and activities to address the various issues I just mentioned. So we will go through now some key highlights of our program framework, starting with an overview. Then we will talk about the envisaged structure and the competitive grant process, followed by some numbers in the funding budgeting section. And lastly, we will close with the anticipated impacts that we hope to see soon in the watershed. So the New York, New Jersey Watershed Protection Act, Bill S3484, aims to provide ecological, economic, and social benefits, and to do so, it is setting up a restoration and grant program, which will both support and help coordinate ongoing restoration activities across state lines and various levels of jurisdictions. And it will also provide funding, thanks to a competitive grant process, to approved protection and restoration projects. To do so, $50 million will be appropriated for each fiscal year during a 5-year period. So this federal funding aims to create a centrally managed framework to help align existing projects across the 4 goals I just mentioned. Currently, the existing structure is a bit disjointed, as it is composed of 7 individual watersheds that are all managed by separate organizations, which can lack coordination. The new structure thus will promote knowledge sharing and alignment of protection and restoration efforts. It will enhance the initiative thanks to grants allocated to specific projects, and it will ensure that environmental justice is prioritized thanks to a community-led process. So this program will be both issue-focused, so addressing the 4 key issues we identified, but also geographically informed in order to recognize the unique conditions in each local watershed, but also to ensure equitable access to funding. So this was highlighted by the Mohawk River Watershed coordinators that we interviewed. She emphasized that a region-based approach ensures that smaller watersheds, like the Mohawk River, are not forgotten. So indeed, today, the Mohawk River, that you can also see on this picture, does not benefit from federal funding as its waters are not crossing any state lines. So the program structure includes 3 main entities, which all have a dedicated scope. So at the top, we have the US Fish and Wildlife Service, which is a federal agency within the US Department of the Interior. They are in charge of managing natural habitats and wildlife. The US Fish and Wildlife Service is the entity responsible for the oversight of the overall restoration and grant program. They will contract the management of the competitive grant process to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, that I will refer to as NIFWIS going forward. So NIFWIS is an independent non-profit organization which has been created by Congress over 40 years ago. They have a very strong expertise in implementing grant programs. As to date, they funded over 20,000 projects since their inception. And the last key entity will be the Watershed-wide Advisory Committee, which will be created. It will comprise various representatives from all the watersheds. And the role of this committee is to support both the US Fish and Wildlife Service and NIFWIS in the competitive grant process that we will present in more detail now. So this process will start with the establishment of specific criteria by the US Fish and Wildlife Service, with the support of the Watershed-wide Advisory Committee. This criteria will be the basis of the request for proposals process, to which local organizations can respond to by submitting proposals. These proposals will be evaluated by NIFWIS in coordination with the Watershed Advisory Committee. And once projects have been awarded, NIFWIS will provide funding to the successful organizations who can start work on the ground. So how the 15 million annual budget will be used? Well, based on our estimates, over 90% of this amount, so 46 million, will be dedicated to grants and thus to specific restoration and protection projects. The remaining 4 million will be used to cover administration costs of the restoration and grant program, with the main portion of this amount covering only the contract to NIFWIS. So to define a successful watershed restoration and grant program, we are targeting that during the first year, at least 75% of the total grant money is allocated to projects. We are also targeting that 1 grant is allocated per individual watershed, and that 3 projects have been initiated. Beyond this first year, we anticipate to see the impacts of the projects implemented and to provide a few non-exhaustive examples. We hope to see that water quality is improved thanks to lower nitrogen and bacterial levels, for instance, that habitats are restored through remediated wetlands and shorelines, that climate change-related events are reduced thanks to better flooding management, and that environmental justice is prioritized by having at least 40% of projects located in disadvantaged communities in line with the Justice 40 initiative. Thanks to the restoration and grant program, many activities to restore and protect the watershed will be implemented, And sustainable solutions will replace the initial issues that the watershed was facing. These solutions can range from removing dams, preventing American hills from migrating on the Hudson River, for instance, or implementing rain gardens and green roof to prevent urban runoff around the Bronx River. These are just obviously a few examples, and we all hope that many projects will come to life once this bill has been passed. Thank you for your attention.
So, Pauline, congratulations to you, your team. It's a very interesting presentation. You mentioned the issue of environmental justice, and I would like to know specifically if you could describe a little more how the bill is addressing environmental social issues. Thank you.
Thanks. So, as I mentioned, we hope that 40% of the projects, that's one of the key target performance, that 40% of the projects will be located in disadvantaged communities. And the specificity of this bill is that they are specifically mentioning environmental injustice. The fact also that you have knowledge sharing and local organizations involved on the ground means that environmental injustice also can be tackled thanks to those organizations that are specifically working on these issues. And also one additional point, so this program was crafted based on another, taking an example of another one, which is a Delaware restoration program. For instance, the Delaware program was mainly focused on endangered species and wildlife. So this bill is very different in terms of it's specifically addressing environmental injustice issues.
Great job, Pauline. Do you see any friction between the local groups that have had to give their authority over to NIFWIF because they used to be in charge and now it's going to be centralized under NIFWIF?
So they will still be in charge because they will be the one, local organization will submit proposals and they will manage their own projects. Also, you will have some representatives from those organizations in the advisory committees that will work in collaboration with NIFWIS. So hopefully it would work out.
Pauline, thank you for a really well done and informative presentation. I wanted to ask, can you speak a little bit more about how you'll be measuring the success of this bill over the long term?
Yeah, so that was mainly this slide. So in our analysis, we separated first year because obviously first year is when you are recruiting people, when you are setting up the criteria for the RFP process, launching the RFP process. So it's a bit of a launch, let's say, of the bill and of the program. So for the first year, we are targeting that not the entire money allocated is actually going to be used, but that at least 75% of this money is used. That we have one grant per watershed, so there are 7 watersheds, so that's 7. And at least 3 projects have started. And then beyond the first year, that's when we want to see the actual impacts of all the projects. So addressing the 4 issues, which are water quality, habitat loss, climate change, and environmental injustice.
Thank you very much.